There's a moment in every live performance that cannot be faked, cannot be edited, and cannot be revised once it has arrived. The moment when the room tells you whether what you have offered it is enough. In music, in theater, in stand-up comedy, in any form that puts a single person in front of a live audience with nothing between them and the audience except what they produce in real time, the room's response is the final and only judgment. It is accurate in the specific sense that it reflects exactly what happened. It is not always accurate in the deeper sense of reflecting what was deserved. The room is honest about what it received, not always about what was possible. There is a night in Katt Williams's career when the room didn't answer. This is not a remarkable fact in the abstract. Every working comedian has nights when the room doesn't answer, and the frequency of those nights does not diminish as a career grows. If anything, it changes in quality rather than frequency. The stakes become different. The visibility becomes different. The distance between the private experience of a difficult set and the public expectation of an excellent one becomes something the performer has to carry across a gap that didn't exist earlier in the career. What is remarkable is not that the night happened. It is what happened the morning after it. The show had been booked at the moment in Katt Williams's career when the trajectory of it was already upward and already visible, when the specials were out and the rooms were getting larger, and the name was carrying the kind of weight that makes each new performance an event rather than simply a show. Which means that a night when the room doesn't answer is no longer just a difficult evening. It is a night when the gap between what the audience brought to the room and what the room received is large enough to be noticed by the performer, by the people who managed the performance, by the people in the audience who came with the expectations that the trajectory had built. The morning after a difficult show presents a comedian with a choice that is not formally articulated, but that every comedian who has lasted more than a few years in the form has had to make repeatedly. The choice of what to do with what the night produced. One option is avoidance, the management of the difficult night by not looking directly at it, by moving through the next day's obligations without returning to the room, by letting the natural forward motion of a working schedule put enough distance between the difficult night and the next show that the difficult night becomes part of the past rather than the present. This is not a dishonest choice. It is a human one. The past recedes, and the next show has its own demands, and the career continues. The other option is to go back. Not literally to the venue. The venue has moved on. The audience has gone home. The room itself no longer exists in the configuration it had during the show. But to return to the material, to sit with it in the morning light and ask what it actually was, not what it was supposed to be, not what it had been on previous nights when the room was giving back, but what it actually was on the night the room was not giving back. To be honest about the gap between the two versions of it. What the people around Katt Williams's career, the people who worked in proximity to his process during those years, have described about the morning after a difficult show is the second option. Not performed self-criticism. Not the public acknowledgement of a hard night for the benefit of people who needed to see the performer being humble. Something private and more rigorous than that. The actual, unwitnessed work of returning to material that had failed a room and asking why, and not stopping the asking until the answer was specific enough to be useful. This is not dramatic. It doesn't have the quality of a scene that would function in a film about a comedian's life. No tears, no crisis, no visible display of the internal process. It is simply a person sitting with their work in the morning and being honest about it. but it is the thing that separates a performer who improves from one who doesn't. And in the specific morning after the specific difficult night, it was the choice Katt Williams made. To understand what a difficult show actually produces in the person on stage, it helps to be clear about what a successful show produces. Because the difference between the two experiences is not simply the presence or absence of applause. A successful show, a night when the room is fully given over, when the laughter comes at the right places with the right quality, when the pace of the set and the pace of the room's response are in alignment, produces something in a comedian that is difficult to compare to anything else. A specific kind of aliveness, the feeling of full presence, of being entirely in the room, in the material, in the moment, that the form offers when it is working at the highest level, and that no other professional experience produces in quite the same way. A difficult show produces the inverse, not simply the absence of that feeling, the active presence of something different. The experience of being on stage in a room that is not giving back what it usually gives back, making the micro-adjustments that experience suggests, while knowing that the adjustments are proximate fixes for a problem that is more fundamental. A room that, for reasons that may have nothing to do with the material or the performance, has arrived at the evening in a configuration that makes full engagement unlikely. And having to finish the set anyway. Because the show doesn't stop when the room is difficult. The show continues, and the comedian continues with it until the hour is done. The walk back to the hotel after that kind of night is its own experience. The particular quality of the late-night city streets after a difficult show, the closed restaurants, the passing cars, the ordinary movements of people who were not in the room and do not carry the weight of the room's evening with them, has a specific quality for a performer who is processing what the last hour produced and did not produce. The night is the same night it would be after a successful show. The street is the same street. The difference is entirely internal, which makes it both very heavy and very private. Katt Williams walked back that night through whatever streets the venue was on, carrying what the room had given back. And the morning after is where this story turns. The next time Katt Williams performed after the difficult night, the people in the room noticed something. Not because they had any knowledge of the night that had preceded it. The audience for the next show had no more access to the private morning work than anyone else had. They noticed it in the way that audiences always notice the difference between a performance that is being executed and one that is being inhabited. In the specific quality of presence that the preceding morning had produced, in the material that had been returned to and asked honest questions of, and, where necessary, changed. Not all of the changes would have been visible as changes. Some of the adjustments that the morning's work produces show up in the performance as subtle differences in rhythm, a half beat of additional space before a line that previously had been crowded, a shift in the order of a section that changes how the setup accumulates toward the payoff, a tonal note in the delivery that had previously been missed, and that the honest reckoning of the morning had identified and corrected. An audience doesn't hear these as corrections. They hear them as the performance being what it is. The correction is invisible in the success, which is the point. What the difficult night gave Katt Williams, and what the morning after it produced, is the thing that difficulty always gives when it is met honestly rather than avoided. A more precise understanding of what the work actually requires. Not the understanding available from successful nights, which confirms what is already working, but the understanding available only from difficult ones, which reveals what is not. The difficult nights, met with the willingness to go back to them in the morning and look honestly at what they produced, are the ones that improve the work. The successful nights consolidate what the difficult ones built. Every career has difficult nights. The best comedians, the ones whose work continues to develop rather than consolidate into a fixed form and stay there, are the ones who don't avoid the morning after them. The night the room didn't answer is not the story. The morning after it is. And in that morning, with nobody watching, Katt Williams did what the best ones do. He went back to the work.